Hey there! Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 194 is titled Conquer Your Unique Path with Jared Judge. Hi Flute 360er, I hope you are well. Before we dive into Jared's episode, I want to draw your attention to two generous offers. Jared is so kind to give you, the Flute 360 listener, a free book. It's titled Gigging Secrets, the Underground Playbook to Making a Living Performing. Now, I don't know about you, but since our music industry has shifted so much in the past few years, it can be challenging to know where to look for performing opportunities. Let Jared guide you so you can have a thriving career as a performer. To get your free copy, go to the link in the show notes below. And next, the second offer is to work with Jared and his team on your music-based website. Because we live in such a technological world, having a website is a must for the 21st century musician. In order to have the teaching and performing career that you dream to have, you need to be found. And a website does just that. Discover a brand new way to get an all-in-one music website built entirely for you. The direct link is in the show notes below. Thanks! Hey, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Nice to meet you face to face.
Yeah, thank you for being so flexible. Sometimes those schedules just go bonkers, so I really appreciate your flexibility.
No, I totally understand.
But you have been so busy. I have seen you around everywhere on Facebook Lives, ads. You're so active in your Facebook private group. Kudos to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. I've gotten to meet musicians around the world through all these things. And, I'm just kind of hoping to help musicians treat their music careers a little bit more like startup businesses so that they can do more of what they love and not have to get jobs that they don't love in order to support their music hobby.
Oh my gosh. Well, we need more Jareds in the world because it is a business and musicians need to be thinking more businessly. And unfortunately, not to get on my soapbox, but unfortunately, a lot of music schools don't teach us those entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah, 100%. That was my experience in both of my music degrees. And I know I'm not alone in that.
So we're going to talk about how you help musicians book more gigs. But I kind of want to backtrack because this whole series is about conquering your unique path. And the reason why I'm doing this is because a lot of 360ers will come to me and will say, I know I have something special to bring to the table. I know I have a unique talent stack. I just don't know what it, and I'm doing air quotes, y'all, it is. So how did you find your it? How did you find this niche in serving musicians, specifically in getting more gigs?
That's a good question. I mean, it kind of all goes back to when I was a kid. I started violin when I was 8 years old, and I was shown the way of, musical performance by my grandfather, who was he loved music. I would say he was a music appreciator more than a performer himself, but he just loved all kinds of music. And he took me to my first violin concert when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I fell in love with the experience. I ran home after the concert, grabbed 2 popsicle sticks and put them on my shoulder and pretended to play violin.
Oh, that is the sweetest thing ever.
Yeah, and he really inspired me. And I had a supportive family who was once you're able to take violin lessons in fourth grade, you can do that. But at that point, I actually wanted to do percussion instead of violin, but they said no to that. So I took, violin lessons and stuck with it for most of public school, although there was a year where I had a teacher who wasn't as supportive. So that it factors into the story because that was my junior year of high school. And I was a music lover. I loved my teacher. But then junior year of high school, the teachers changed. And this new teacher had no control over the classroom. And I wasn't getting out of orchestra class what I wanted. So I went and took a web design class instead.
Very cool.
So I got lucky with that because that is a skill that I continue to use to this day. And it helps book gigs, of course. But senior year of high school, I switched back to percussion. I'm sorry I'm giving you my life story here.
No, I want your life story. Give it all.
Okay. So senior year, I finally convinced my mom to let me play percussion because the orchestra teacher was still the same, but I missed music so much. So I finally got to play percussion and wound up doing really well. I got to play in the top band, which was cool for somebody who hadn't taken any percussion lessons. Then college comes and I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was undecided, taking all the music lessons, all the ensembles, and finally it came to a point where all of the people in my classes were like, "Are you a music major?" And I said no. They said, "You should be." It's like, "You're right, I should be." So majored in music education, got the degree, became a public school music teacher for a couple years.
Okay.
But realized I didn't have the patience to teach third grade recorders hot cross buns over and over again.
Same.
And so I was looking for musical opportunities that would push me as a musician in addition to just me as a teacher. So what that actually looked like before I went to grad school was I went on Craigslist.
Okay.
And I found two amazing opportunities for me as a musician in New Jersey, which was where I was a teacher. One of them was an opera company was just looking for some general administrative help.
Okay.
And I'm not a singer, so it's not like I could sing in the chorus and help them out that way. But I was like, I know how to do websites. You guys look like you could use a website. Let's make it happen.
Wow.
And so I started attending rehearsals too, just to learn about opera, because they don't teach that if you're just taking violin or percussion lessons.
Okay.
And so I really dove deep and fell in love with that art form, but also fell in love with being an administrator because I created their website, but then I also raised money for them and started to secure their performance spaces and get the word out and do press releases for them and write grants. And that was a really great experience because I learned what it takes to support a music career through all of the administration and how to fund it too. But then the second opportunity that came from Craigslist, I swear I'm not on Craigslist all the time. Okay.
Perusing through the ads.
Yeah, no, I stay away from the missed connections. I'm married.
Okay. That's too funny.
But I did find in the musicians section, there was a wedding trio that was run by a flute player.
Okay.
And this flute player had created this business where she would send out groups to play for weddings. And typically she would be on the gig as the first violin part. She would treat it as a string trio, but flute on first violin.
Okay.
And then a second violinist and a cellist. And I had to audition for that. So I showed up to this random person's house based on a message on Craigslist. And luckily it was not a trap. There was a flute player and a cello player there, and they just needed a second violinist.
You know how sneaky us flutists can be.
Oh, yeah.
Reel you in.
I married a flute player, so that's exactly what happened.
Perfect. Love it.
So I took the audition and got the spot and started gigging. We had a very busy summer with multiple weddings each day. Sometimes we'd play multiple in each day, sometimes not. But these were some of the highest paid gigs I had ever experienced.
Okay.
When you're doing a typical symphony or a community orchestra or something like that, the pay is typically a little bit lower, but you also do get a great artistic experience. if you're working with good musicians.
Yeah, sure.
But these weddings were paying more than I'd ever experienced, which was really cool. So I kind of filed that in the back of my mind. Then I still wasn't quite musically satisfied. Plus, at that point, I was in a long distance relationship with somebody in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I'd been 3 years now long distance after 3 years of not long distance because that trumpet player I had met in undergrad.
Okay.
I tend to fall for musicians.
Okay.
What can I say?
That's fair. I married a guitarist, so yeah.
So after 3 years of long distance, it was time to make a change. And I wanted to have some sort of musical opportunity lined up after that. And so that's when I decided I wanted to pursue conducting because I loved opera. I loved getting to conduct great musicians. So why not get a master's degree in orchestra conducting?
Okay.
And so I applied for an assistantship at University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, got that assistantship and had to resign, which was fine. But then a couple days after I signed my assistantship contract, the trumpet player and I broke up.
Okay.
But everything works out. You know, I believe that things just work out, especially if you keep taking actions that make it work out.
True.
So I got that grad degree. And while I was studying orchestra conducting, which is a very rigorous curriculum where you're taking private lessons, just like on an instrument, but instead of practicing your instrument, you're waving your arms around and studying scores. Music theory classes, music history classes, so much good stuff that if you don't land that perfect job, you're never going to get to use. And it was a 2-year program. After towards the end of the first year, I started to get scared about my job prospects.
Okay.
And so for most musicians, it's like, let's just take some auditions. Okay. So let's start lining up auditions. So I did. And I was applying to auditions at some universities to be their university orchestra conductor. Also at some military bands, because at that point, I got really interested in conducting the Air Force band or the Army band. I don't know. I guess I had seen a couple. They always send out the military musicians to give a master class at your school.
Yeah, yeah.
And they sell you on the idea of being a military musician because it's a nice paying job.
Right.
And it's high level music, which appealed to me.
Okay.
So I did take some auditions. And the last audition I ever took was for the Air Force band. So I got accepted to, I passed the resume round, got accepted to the final round, which they only had 5 musicians do. And what that mean was we had to fly to Joint Base Anacostia Bolling in DC and then conduct the premier Air Force band, which was the most thrilling musical experience of my life.
I would say so. Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Like those musicians are next level. So
yeah, bar none.
So I got to conduct them, and despite all of my self-doubt and my fears and anxieties, they sounded good. I'm sure they were ignoring the conductor rather than doing what the conductor was showing because they sounded so good. So then after the audition, the commander of the band pulled me into his office, which I hadn't seen him do with any of the other candidates, asked me to shut the door, and I got the flutters going in the heart. Do I have the job or is he going to ream me out? So he said, Jared, that was a great audition. I can tell you're very talented. Plus, they tested us music theory tests before we even auditioned.
Oh, wow.
And he said, your music theory scores were really high.
Yeah.
But you're just too inexperienced. I can't give you the job right now.
Oh, okay.
Come back and audition again in another year. But unfortunately for me, another year meant I would be graduated and kind of having to figure out the money situation on my own.
Huh.
And so I was kind of discouraged after that, feeling like auditions really aren't the way for me. So I wondered, what is my way? So I go back to, fly back to Milwaukee, tell all my teachers I was so close. What do I do? And they said, well, can you wait another year? I was like, no, I can't. I need to start bringing in money. They asked me, do you want to teach? And I said, not really. I don't have the patience to teach recorders again. And I'd also taught private lessons too, which, I enjoyed the students who practiced, but it takes a lot to get there, and you don't always get the ideal student right away. And I didn't want to build a studio in a new city from scratch.
Okay.
And so they said, we've got no other advice for you. Maybe you want to ask the business school how they would do it. And so that was the best piece of advice I got.
I was going to literally, like, my eyes just lit up. The fact that they pointed you into that direction, like, good for them. I mean,
Yeah.
bravo. They didn't have the answer, but for them to say, oh, go to the business department, like, that's a gold mine. Because now
Yeah.
your path is going to be more, probably, I'm guessing, I'm not going to like assume the rest of your story here, but I'm guessing that this is the ingredient that makes things more clear for you.
100%.
Okay.
And the lucky part was that the business school took me, this nerdy orchestra guy, under their wing. And they said, we've got the perfect thing for you. We are launching what's called the Student Startup Challenge, open to all majors, but will help you launch a startup business.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't really want to start a business, but the audition thing isn't working, so I'll try anything at this point.
Okay.
And it was really fun. Like, they taught us some of the basics of running a business, like figuring out who do you serve as a musician. Because up until this point, I had really just been serving myself and other musicians.
Interesting. Okay.
And they said, well, if you want people to pay you money for your music, you have to serve them. You have to give them something back. And you might already be doing that. Like, your performance definitely serves non-musicians, but you have to get clear about who they are and what does it actually do for them.
Yes. Everyone, highlight, bold, underline that right there. Okay, continue.
So it was just these like basic questions and exercises they had me answer and do that like opened my eyes to everything. And then they helped me decide on a market. So when I'm saying market, it's like a sub market, a niche. Like, focus on one thing instead of trying to serve everybody.
Yep.
Because if I tried to serve everybody, I'd paddle in 20 different directions and my canoe would get nowhere.
Exactly. Yep.
And I had to figure out, well, what market do I want to serve? I am a violinist. I play music at a high level. It's beautiful. It's elegant. It's romantic. And I also want to make good money doing this. So like, they had me go through this, and I feel like it's worth talking about because other musicians might have epiphanies, but they had me think all of the opportunities I was pursuing. If we looked at that from a business perspective, you can really like, each opportunity had two different aspects to it that either worked together or worked against each other.
Yep.
One of those was how much volume, or what's the number of opportunities that are available to you in a given year.
Okay.
For example, like, there are only so many spots available to an orchestra conductor auditioning.
Yeah.
That is a low volume opportunity.
Yep.
But there are also a near infinite amount of volunteer musician opportunities, at like elderly homes or hospitals. So that's a high volume opportunity. So that's aspect one, which is the volume of it. The second aspect was value, which for their business perspective was how much money does each opportunity afford you. So again, back to the professional conducting position, that was a high value opportunity for me because if I got that, I'd be set for life. Full-time pay, benefits, retirement, one and done.
Yeah.
But then the elderly homes or hospital opportunities, while they are high volume because you could do as many of them as you want, low monetary value because if you're not getting paid, you're not funding yourself. Yep. And 9 out of 10 startup businesses fail in their first year because they haven't figured that balance out to get paid what they're worth.
Got it. Yep.
And so what's the sweet spot where the volume is high, but the value is high?
Mm.
And so we did a bunch of market research, and we found in Milwaukee, there are over 11,000 weddings that happen in a single year.
Wow.
And because I told him I played in that wedding trio back in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And like 11,000, there are not 11,000 days in the year. There are 365. So that's more than enough volume for me to survive as a musician.
I see.
But also, I knew from my past experience they paid very well.
Yep.
And so they said, that's your market. That's the market for you right now. And it doesn't just have to be weddings. It could also be corporate events or nonprofit events or even private parties, because they're all kind of in the same private events category.
Got it.
And this exercise doesn't just work for playing gigs. It could also work for what type of students you get, or if you're trying to get recording or session musician work. Similar exercises work.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was the wedding market. And they said, okay, now that we've identified your market, we have to figure out how to market you. How do you let those 11,000 couples know that you exist and can actually serve them?
Got it.
And so essentially we went through a lot of other exercises to figure out how to create what they told me at the time is called a marketing funnel.
Yep.
Where, a funnel, it's wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. And it represents the fact that at the top of the funnel, you're trying to attract as many potential prospects as possible. So, where are the places that they're already shopping for wedding dresses or venues or this, that, and the other? And how can you tap into them and then get a little bit more time with them to present an offer to them?
Yep.
And follow up, of course. Not all of them will follow you down the funnel, which is why it gets narrow.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because I don't need all 11,000.
Yeah, very true. Yep.
So we figured it out.
Yeah.
One of my secrets is that I do give a sales presentation to these weddings. And because they get to know me, they get to understand what I do, they see me as an expert, and they trust me, then I have a very high percentage of those who actually book me for a very high rate.
Convert.
Convert, yeah, for sure. I could tell that you've got some marketing funnel background.
Well, yes. My story is long, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I've had to backtrack. Very similar, like you get the music degrees, and then at some point you meet your threshold. You're banging your head against the wall, like getting that one conductor job like you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, shoot, I need to learn some of these business skills. I need to go through these exercises. I need to learn about marketing and funneling and things like that. So it wasn't actually until recently, these last 2 years, that I've had to kind of throw myself into that arena to do exactly what you're doing, but within my niche.
Oh,
so
awesome.
we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but very similar stories in a lot of different ways. So, but anyways, continue with, we're at the tip of the funnel, converting. Is that where we left off?
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So once I had figured out the marketing funnel, like booking gigs was easy.
Okay.
And also raising prices was easy because I have a limited availability. And if there are people competing for my limited availability, well, I can give priority to those who can pay more.
Yep.
So within our first year, this is crazy. Like the group as a whole earned over $100,000 in gigs.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I don't know if your podcast publishes video, but these awards behind me, like this is our first one where we ever earned $100,000. Like my company now gives out these awards.
Okay.
We call them the Major Sixth Award because there are 6 figures in 100,000.
Yep. Oh, cute.
And so we have 4 of them on the wall. The 5th one is coming now. Those aren't my 5. There are now my students who are earning those as well.
Congratulations again. That is huge.
Thank you.
Not only have you hit a huge milestone, but now you are celebrating your students and their huge milestone. And the fact that you can say, hey, there's proof in the pudding over here, but I'm going to teach you some of that proof so you can get some pudding.
Yeah.
And that way, they can also have success and they have achieved that success. Like, kudos. There's nothing better. Like, the cap that I wear the most strong and the most proud as a musician is being an educator. And when I see my students rack up the awards or rack up, the different jobs or whatever, that's what brings me joy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, it's all worth it.
For sure. And like, I said I didn't have the patience for teaching third graders recorder, but I geek out about teaching musicians how to market their services and sell gigs.
That's awesome.
That all kind of started. So continuing with like the finding my path thing.
Yeah.
After I had achieved, the 100K the first 100K in gigs, I realized like I had a process that, I thought maybe I could teach somebody if they ever wanted to know. And that happened a lot quicker than I expected when a cello player who was in Buffalo, New York, reached out to me. Her name is Carly. She said, like, I love what you're doing, but I'm in Buffalo, New York. You're in Milwaukee. Like, it doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not getting any gigs because you're in Milwaukee. Could you help me start my own string quartet in Buffalo?
Mm.
And I told her, like, it's going to be out of your comfort zone because they don't teach this in music school, because she had 2 degrees just like I did in cello performance. But if you're willing to get out of your comfort zone and take some action, then I think it could work for you. Are you willing to be my guinea pig?
Yeah.
And she said yes. So we started doing like one-on-one, just private lessons. Built her website for her, started to help her drive some traffic into her funnel, give her the confidence to talk to these people and sell them her music. And she got it. And it was really cool to see her book her first gig a couple years ago. And now she is just like me. She's booking tons of weddings every summer and making money playing music.
That's amazing. So to kind of like, there's a lot of detail there. So what I'm hearing is you noticed the breadcrumbs in your life. You noticed, oh, hey, I had this very unique experience with that one wedding gig on Craigslist, and I had a really good experience. I loved it. And you remembered the pay and you remembered the fulfillment that you received from that experience. And then, hey, I got to talk with the business coaches. And hey, I received some marketing help. And the experience that really lit me up was the website experience, right? In between like your degrees and stuff. I mean, that's huge. And I think it's important. And the reason why I'm bringing this to light is because I think a lot of times, and I don't want to put words or thoughts in anybody's mouth or brain, but I think sometimes as musicians, we dismiss the non musical experiences. Would you kind of resonate with that a little bit?
100%.
Okay. And they think, oh, well, that does not play a part in my talent stack. That does not play a part in what I can offer the world in a very unique way. But the funny thing is, it does. That's probably like the magical ingredient that you need to set off all of the musical experiences to bring it to life.
100%.
Okay.
And so you saw me do part of my Book More Weddings challenge, which was that free 5-day challenge that I hosted on Facebook Live, which we're doing again soon. I don't know when this podcast comes out. We're doing it on Valentine's Day.
Oh, your episode definitely airs after Valentine's Day. but your episode airs March 1st. So do you have anything lined up like post-March?
Yeah, we don't have the exact dates, but
Okay.
we will be doing the challenge again because people booked some weddings from it. It's great. But one of the things I said on the challenge, which I think opened a lot of musicians' eyes, is that non-musicians are sold on music from very different things that musicians are sold on music by.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. Non-musicians are sold by different things than musicians are sold by.
Okay.
So whereas, when I'm a musician, I'm listening to another musician play, I notice their technical prowess. I notice their musical ability, their tone quality, their I don't know, their rhythm, all these things that
Intonation.
intonation, things I've been learning since I was in fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
But to a non-musician, aka the one who pays the bills,
Yep.
they don't notice those things. What they notice is how music makes them feel.
Yep.
Or they notice that when they're walking down the aisle, there's beautiful music rather than silence.
Mm.
Like,
Or a recording playing in the background in a boombox.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So the lesson there is that, like, I feel like many musicians are resistant to these business things because the musicians themselves are sold on other musicians because of everything they learned since they were getting started.
Yeah, yeah.
And they think that that's enough,
Okay.
but they don't realize you're not serving other musicians most of the time. You're
Interesting.
serving non-musicians who are paying your bills
Yeah.
most of the time. And the business thing serves those people so that you can do more of what you love.
Yeah. They're looking at the whole package. And it kind of brings it to another point that I wanted to bring up, the fact that you're getting in front of the bride and groom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're getting into that space of, let me get to know you, kind of like a discovery call. And that's imperative because you can have your name, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but because you have more experience in this than me, but the fact that you're getting into that space where you can see the person's face and body language and hear the voice and make that human connection is so imperative because you can have your name on a million business cards dropped off at a million David's bridals, but until they meet Jared and get to know, trust, and like you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that element is so key. You're probably not going to have a higher conversion because that element, that human interaction is not there.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the minute that somebody sees that I'm a real person, even when I'm working with musicians too, like when they see on the challenge that I'm a live human, they trust it more than just, here's my website, buy my book,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Because it feels salesy, like, boom, go, book
Yeah.
me. But if they were to meet you, then they realize, like, oh, he has a really like soft nature. You have a very soft spirit, Jared. I don't know if anybody has ever told you that, but you're very um welcoming and warm, but you're also very soft. And it's a breath of fresh air. I mean, who wouldn't love to have that kind of sweet energy at a wedding?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you can get like really excited and loud with like your friends or your wife, but I can't imagine like some like really powerful energy. Well, unless if that was the energy of the wedding, right? Like some weddings are like over the top,
Oh, yeah.
fun and explosive. But anyways, I digress. That human interaction is really important.
Yeah, for sure. And it is also something that can help you price yourself higher.
Okay.
So I don't do it just because of that. Like, obviously, I am who I am. But when people meet you face to face, that in their mind increases the value of your service
Okay.
because they're looking for experts to guide them along the path of getting an ideal wedding music situation.
Mm.
And if they perceive that most groups just try to throw off business cards and hope they get a gig out of it, that's when all those groups start to look the same in couples' minds, and it
Mm.
becomes a race to the bottom with pricing.
Okay.
But if you give more service, then all of a sudden you stand out,
Yep.
which means like, all these groups are charging $200 for a wedding, but like I am on your team. I am by your side every step of the way. You'll get consultations with me. I'll reach out to you before the wedding. I'll reach out afterwards. Like
Mm.
I'm a friend,
Yeah.
and people will pay more for that kind of service.
Oh, definitely. So thank you for letting us come along your journey of how you found your niche of being this gigging musician specifically for weddings. So we're talking about noticing the breadcrumbs. So if there's a flutist out there listening through Flute 360, by the way, you're the second violinist on the show.
Awesome.
Yeah. You'll have to go back and listen to Sarah Whitney, and she talks about imposter syndrome. But anyways, what I was saying was if there's a flutist listening to this right now and they're they're in a similar situation like you were, like, I really don't want to conduct, I really don't want to do the third grade, recorder gig. Would your suggestion be to do something similar, like maybe go down to the business department of a local college or get a business coach to maybe go through those different activities like you did? What are your passions? What is your talent stack? What are you good at? What do you know? And then maybe then start crossing off the things like recorder class, conducting the Air Force, band. Do you know what I mean? Like, what I'm hearing is I'm very much a doer.
Hmm.
So a lot of times I think it's good to like measure. It's good to like spew. It's good to think. It's good to daydream. But at the end of the day, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing from your journey is you took action. You brought people into your circle, you pulled people into your orbit, and you asked those tough questions. What am I doing wrong? Where do I need to be? What activities, what exercises do I need to like take pen to paper and
Hmm.
figure it out? Start crossing, start circling, and then get really clear on my place within the music community.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
Okay.
that's the whole concept of you need a coach, which I don't know about you, but I have like 5 different business coaches right now because they're all helping me with different aspects of my business. And I know that for many musicians, once they graduate college or they stop taking auditions, they stop music lessons altogether.
Okay.
Like, I don't know too many adult musicians who are still taking music lessons unless they're still pursuing a very high level position.
Sure. Hmm.
And, that's totally fine. There's no judgment on that. But I am so glad that I started taking business lessons back in college too, because that is something that I'm still trying to make my career happen. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think I'll ever feel like I've made it, just because whenever I meet a goal, I've always set a higher one after
Hmm.
that. And it's the coaches that I have worked with and will continue to work with and have never met yet that I think will help me get me to those goals.
Yep.
And they also hold me accountable so that I take action, because you don't get results if you don't take action.
Yeah. So the investment part is so important. And you're right. Like, once you have that degree on the wall, you're not done learning.
Hmm.
I have my doctorate and I have learned, I graduated in 2018 and we're now in 22. So that's 4 years. These 4 years, I have seen the most growth within myself as a flutist, as a businesswoman, as a teacher. You're never done growing.
Right.
And that continuous learning has to be there if you want to, going back to what you said, reaching those other goals going up the ladder, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, I achieved that rung. Yes. All right, what's the next one? So, yes, I totally resonate with everything you're saying. So, is there another piece of advice that you want to give to a flutist other than action, or do you want to move on to maybe another topic?
I think that's it right now for the action piece.
I think so too.
But I would love to share another story because, I haven't mentioned a big part of what my business currently does. And it's all based on a story of after I was already booking a lot of gigs.
Okay.
So part of my company, we run a software tool called Book Live, which is an automation tool that basically organizes all of your gigs and your clients and your musicians and your repertoire and everything in one place so that it does all the work for you. But to show like how that was built, it was actually built because of the worst day of my music career ever.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
So I had just gotten married, and a couple months after I married my flute playing wife, Emily,
Nice.
we wanted to go on a date to go pick apples. It was like November, beautiful fall day in Wisconsin. And this apple orchard we wanted to go to was an hour outside of our city. We wanted to go on a Saturday afternoon, which if you're in the wedding industry, you know that that's prime wedding gigging time.
Okay.
But nothing was automated at this point. I was still using spreadsheets and notes on my phone and text messages to coordinate people and emails all over the place. And I checked all of those resources before I said, yes, let's go on this date. Nothing showed up. I didn't have a gig. I was like,
Mm.
This is great. We're going to stock up on Honeycrisps. So we drive an hour outside of Milwaukee and we're picking apples. We probably get a good 30, 45 minutes of apple picking in. And we get to my favorite, the Honeycrisps. And as I'm picking Honeycrisp with those big sticks with the baskets on the end, my phone starts vibrating in my pocket. Mm-hmm. So I put the stick down and look at the phone, and I see the name of the caller ID was a wedding planner.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was like freaking out. It's like, what do I do? What do I do? So I very nervously answered, hello. And then I get the biggest earful I've ever gotten in my life.
Oh.
This wedding planner was screaming at me like, the wedding starts in 10 minutes. Where the heck are the strings? She didn't say heck, of course. She said something a little stronger. And I was like, I just froze. I had no idea what to do. And it said, like, give me a second. I'm going to call every musician I know. I will get you some solution. Hopefully it's musicians.
Yeah.
So I just go into like freak out mode, calling every string player in Milwaukee. The wedding venue was 25 minutes north of Milwaukee.
Okay.
And they walked down the aisle in 10 minutes. So every musician I called said, I just can't do that. That's not possible.
Yeah.
And they weren't willing to delay their wedding, which they shouldn't have had to. It was my fault completely. Mm. And so finally I gave up on string players. I called their DJ and said, hey, I'm so sorry. I screwed up. This has never happened to me before, but can you take one of the speakers you're using for their reception and play ceremony music? I'll send you the playlist. Huh. And thankfully the DJ was willing to do that, but it's still, I ruined their wedding and I felt awful. Hmm. So their wedding happened without me, and I went on an apology tour, refunded them their string money, paid them for their DJ to be there because I felt so bad. Took a big loss on that, but it was worth it because like I screwed up and they deserve.
That's very commendable of you.
But the wedding planner still hasn't forgiven me.
Okay.
Which is fine because like I thought at the moment that I had ruined my reputation for all wedding planners in Wisconsin or even the U.S.
That's what I'm literally placing myself in your shoes right now. Apple, speakers, DJ, all of that. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've ruined my reputation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you had this, obviously you had the same feelings.
Totally. And I was really nervous about that. And I don't know if it's like this, I'll keep it 18, like PG here.
Okay.
But I did go to a bar later, mm-hmm. and, I was enjoying myself. Mm-hmm. And instead of drinking and driving home, I took an Uber home. And this was really cool. This is where I had the epiphany, was when I ordered the Uber, mm-hmm. I noticed that Uber was managing a gig for the driver. Mm-hmm. It was telling them the date and the time to show up. Like it reminded them with push notifications. But then it also showed them the itinerary, like here's where you're dropping them off and here's your next passenger. And then it automatically paid them afterwards. So Uber's admin staff wasn't really like writing checks to every driver afterwards.
Right.
And I was like, if Uber can make this happen for drivers, I wish there was something like that for musicians that would have told me like, hey, you're about to miss a gig. And then I could have done something about it. So,
and that's Book Live.
That is Book Live. I spent like a couple all-nighters after that, bringing back my web development skills and just coding the very first version. Uh-huh. And I was like, we have another wedding next weekend. Like, I know I already have these musicians secured, but I want to see if this would have actually prevented what happened.
Okay.
So
you were the guinea pig.
I was, and to this day remain the guinea pig for any new features of Book Live.
Okay. Because you don't want to have another apple orchard moment.
Right.
Okay.
So I put that wedding in the next weekend, and I told it I need 2 violins, a viola, and a cello for the quartet. Mm. And I want to just be able to press one button, and then boom, that's all I need to do. Uh-huh. And so I told it that, pushed one button, and then within a minute, I got a notification on my phone saying, Paul just accepted the request on first violin, because it had sent Paul an email and a text message saying, here's the date of the gig, here's the time you're playing, here's how much you're getting paid, and here's the venue. Are you available, yes or no?
Yeah.
And then he clicked the yes button, and then that's what notified my phone, Paul's in. So that was like really cool because it could staff a gig for me. But then I saw Dana is not available on viola.
Okay.
But the app had already reached out to Catherine, who also plays viola, because she could just slide right in as our sub.
Yeah, yeah.
And Catherine accepted within 5 minutes.
Shut up.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
So I'd like, my mind was blown. I was like, this would have prevented that worst day of my life.
Okay, so let's back up because this is too good. And I have some tech friends in the industry. So the fact that you're coding and building apps and everything like that, it's just like, phew. So anyways, from time frame, I'm just very curious. And the reason why I'm curious is because I've done a series in the past with inventors building like flute gadgets and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And so like their time frame of like the idea, um, and then initiating it and then cultivating that idea and then like producing it, putting it out, right? Their time frames are completely different sometimes. Sometimes it's like, oh, I had this thought, the next day it was produced, done. Others it was like, oh, I had this idea 20 years ago and now it came to the marketplace. Anyways, my question is, I'm imagining you picking apples in the afternoon, having the worst day of your life, somebody cursing you out. Was it that night that you went to the bar?
I'm
Was
not.
it the same night?
So that's where it gets a little foggy for me. I don't want to like
Okay.
say it was definitely that night, but I'm sure I went to the bar that night.
Within a couple days of the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So within 24 to 48 hours, then you went to de-stress, have some fun with your wife or whatever. And then you had that Uber epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did you start actually coding the first iteration of Book Live?
So the first code was pretty soon thereafter. It was like within a couple days.
So again, taking action. Like
Mm-hmm.
you had this idea. I mean, and there's no coincidences. I believe like what a huge blessing for you to like, again, I don't want to sound redundant, but it sounds like you're noticing the breadcrumbs. I don't ever want to have that Apple day ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just doing your normal thing, like leaving the restaurant and looking down and saying, wait a second, Uber automates this. I can see my driver saying, right now, the app is telling me my driver's turning left.
Yep.
My driver's turning right onto Grand Street. He's going to be here in 5 minutes. I mean, no brain cells need to be burned at all. Like, right?
Right.
Easy peasy, right. So the fact that this all happened within 48 hours for you to say, oh, Epiphany, Uber, I'm going to make a music version of this for my gigging business. And for you to start implementing the steps within like 14 days?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, do you have like, are you like the Energizer Bunny or something? Because that is insane.
I don't think I'm the Energizer Bunny, but you know how like when you're playing a piece of music that you love, you get into a flow state where like you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
realize that hours have passed.
Okay.
That's what it was like when I started coding it, because I could see
Oh.
I could see it come together, and like I would test little parts of it and it would work. I was like, I'm getting so much joy and satisfaction out of this that I have to keep going.
Okay.
And I kind of refused to stop until I was there.
That's unbelievable. That really is inspiring to me and motivating to me because what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing in a colleague like yourself, you're tenacious. Like you said, I was not willing to give up. And a huge component of this too is like being curious. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, like Uber can do it. Why can't I do it? And just experimenting and all of these things that we do. And so this is my point in all of this. I'm not rambling, I swear. Everything we do in the music room, I'm curious, can I get this certain flute tone? I'm curious. I wonder if these syllables would work really well for my double tonguing for Rossini versus scherzo versus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taking that same curiosity, experimentation in the practice room, and then like picking it up and shifting it maybe to a different realm, like building a music app. And
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing you do so well.
for sure. And I would even say, like, getting back to the point about coaches, because when you said hearing that tone or that double tonguing in Rossini or something,
Uh-huh.
a coach could be as simple as somebody who's already done what you're doing, that you can just deconstruct what they're doing and
Mhm.
apply it to you to model the success that they're having. So
Yeah.
in that aspect, Uber was my coach without me paying anything more than a couple bucks for a ride.
Yeah. Wow. You should be so proud of yourself. I'm proud of you. That
Thank
and we
you.
just met. No, that's mind-blowing. And I'm so glad that you were extremely open about your even the bad day. Thank you for putting that out. Thanks for putting out your dirty laundry because guess what? You're human. We're all human. We're going to make
Hmm.
mistakes.
Yes.
It's inevitable, right? But the fact that you took that experience and said, "Okay, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to make this happen or I'm going to do something about it where this never happens again." Now you have a thriving business because of it.
Yeah.
Like, hello?
I've heard there was a phrase that I like. It's your mess becomes your message.
That preach it, brother. I say message all the time. It's amazing because it's literally the mess part of the beginning of message, and I think it's genius. But
Yeah.
yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just got really excited because
Oh, that's good.
it resonates with me too.
Awesome.
But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, your mess becomes your message. Uh-huh.
for sure.
Yeah. So, with the fact that you do help musicians get more gigs, do you help them specifically get gigs for weddings solely? Is that like it seems like niche gigging musician, but then like wedding gigging is even more niche.
Yeah. So basically, my framework, which is built off of all the frameworks of my coaches, it can work for any type of gig.
Oh, you did say that with like the private events.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I do try to help musicians fund their music career through private events, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to play in a community orchestra, or if you're in the bar scene, there's nothing wrong with wanting to play bar gigs.
Right. Right.
The, you just have to figure out, how do I fund it? So if you can fund it with private events, you're still getting the experience of playing, getting the confidence from being on stage all the time, that you can then have the freedom and the confidence to go and play a public gig and totally crush it and get that artistic satisfaction. But you also know in the back of your mind that, like, it's okay that that gig only pays $100 because I made $1,000 last weekend.
Mm, yeah. No, I love it. So if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, "Oh my goodness, I would love to book more flute gigs," whether it is, in restaurants or weddings or some private event. How can they work with you or how can they reach out to you to maybe get mentored if that's something that you offer?
Yeah. So we have like a bunch of different options depending on what you're looking for. But the easiest way to like get into our world and learn how to book gigs the way that we teach is through the free challenges that we run.
Okay.
So you can check bookmorewedingschallenge.com to see when we're running the next one. And it doesn't matter if you can't show up live because there's always a replay. You'll still get the same teaching out of it. If you're more of a book person, I do have a book called Gigging Secrets. So that is free. You just have to pay shipping and handling. That's at giggingsecrets.com. And then we also do build websites for musicians. Those are definitely geared towards getting you more bookings if you're interested in that. And so we just launched this. We're testing it out. It's called performingsites.com, which I think is kind of fun because it'll help you perform, but the website will also perform at getting you gigs.
I love play on words and things like that. You don't even know. My friend Sammy just like rolls his eyes at me every time. I Genius. I think it's perfect.
And then, of course, like if they want a free trial of the Book Live software, they could just go to booklive.com and try it out for free for a couple weeks.
That's amazing. I will make sure that I provide all of those links in the show notes below. So if you're a 360 listener right now, like subscribe to the podcast so that way those show notes pop up for you, because it's just literally on your screen, click and go. And I want you to be able to have access to all of these amazing resources that Jared just laid out for us. Thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I totally forgot to ask, where can they follow you via social media?
Yeah, so our main social account is at BookLive app on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. And then you can follow me at Jared Judge on Instagram, and also send me a friend request on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, talents, and expertise, and your Apple story, the Uber story, the little popsicle story. All of it just totally lit up my Friday morning, and so I thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. It's been a pleasure getting to know you too, so thanks for having me on your podcast.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope that the content has served you well. Now, don't forget about Jared's 2 amazing incentives. If you want your free book, or if you want to start building your website today with performing sites, then please click the links below in the show notes. This is a great way to get your career headed in the right direction and a fantastic way to support the Flute 360 podcast. Please let Jared know that Heidi sent you, and you'll be glad that you did. Thank you so much. Let's talk about flute.